A very interesting subject today. I've got a map of the end-time nations that are going to be coming against Israel in the Ezekiel battle of Magog. But I think what we need to talk about is the reality that Donald Trump has done something to establish peace in the Middle East, so that even the prophecy teachers are now factoring Donald Trump's Iran intervention into the story of Ezekiel, and how we now have an extension of peace in the Middle East for who knows how long, 4 years, 7 years, 10 years? But the result is the movement of God now can go into the Middle East in a way it never has before. By the way, you see me here in my little sink. Oh, Lance, did you do all the dishes? No, I don't do the dishes. Somebody does the dishes. But what I do have is drinkable water. I'm looking at the studies that are coming out of the abortion pill, the pharmaceuticals, vaccines, and other things that are floating in the water that are absolutely, and you know what's worse? Bottled water is as bad as tap water, but with the system that we got. LanceWallnau.com/water. We have this system under the sink here. One filter takes all the impurities out. The other filter puts the minerals in that you get stripped out of your normal water, and you don't have the plastic because it's the way it's done. And the result is water that actually hydrates you. What a unique idea, with no impurities, with no chemicals, no abortion pill leftovers. By the way, here's our Middle East map. Join me in the show today. I'm going to show you the countries that are going to line up against Israel, and go to LanceWallnau.com/water so that you can be refreshed and not poisoned while you find out what God's end time plan is. Let's get into the show. You know what I love? I love watching how, and I don't mean to be cynical about it, but were you amazed at how panic attack-y our people were, who actually don't feel like God's in control? I'm just saying, people call themselves Christians and they use language, but you know, a tree's known by its fruit, and when you have panic attacks over Iran, over what's Trump going to do, you realize that there's not a whole lot of depth. Anyone could say they're a Christian or whatever, and they subscribe to the basic ideas of, you know, Judeo-Christian worldview. But the real test comes when you got peace in your heart because you're actually thinking, I guess, with the right mind, and you're reading this word and you're getting the right interpretation. My point, watching Tucker, and watching, I'm sorry to say, some of the anxiety, even with some of my friends on my channel, worried about this regional conflict spinning out of control, spiraling out of control, who's got influence over Trump and who's talking to Israel. Like everybody knows, let me give you a little bit of secret here, you need to know. Donald Trump isn't controlled by anyone. Nobody is controlling Donald. Nobody gets into his ear and controls that guy. He takes all data in and weighs it in this kind of interesting calculus he does that comes out with percentages that favor common sense solutions. He's like a computer that way. Instincts are really profound. I was watching Bobby Fischer recently in chess. I don't know why. I got in an algorithm on YouTube where it's giving me chess games all the time. Probably because I'm watching chess games now that I think of it. And so I'm watching Bobby Fischer. And sometimes he's younger, and the commentators are reading, now, we use stockfish, and it goes 7 levels deep to come up with the next move. And according to the AI, this would be the right move. Bobby Fischer did this move. Boom. Everybody thought it was a mistake. But then if you go to stockfish 14 levels deep, how did Fischer get that? Intuition. He saw it made sense. He somehow had this thing wired in where he intuitively knew this is the right. A lot of what Trump does, he takes in all the data he can, like stockfish, and then his intuition gives him the rationalization for the best move out of those choices. All I'm going to tell you is he was right on Iran, and Tucker was wrong. So were all the other hand-wringers, Marjorie Taylor Greene included. I'm not going to send my kids to forever wars, forever wars, forever wars. You know what now? We have all these, and we always have the prophetic community, my apocalyptic people that make a living off of trauma. It's almost like clickbait. You know how commercials get sold on televisions like that? Everything that happens is clickbait, man. People want to go, what's going to happen? What's going to? And you can see a spike in the ratings. And I can see it myself, but I don't do it. Like, I'm so infrequently going live that. But when I do, it's like everybody wants to know what's going to happen. What about this? You know what the trending is now among prophecy experts? It looks as though war in the Middle East is not going to happen. And in fact, it's not going to be an increase of wars and rumors of wars right now. What's going to happen is a period of extended peace. It looks as though Donald Trump is establishing an era for the Abraham Accords to expand. It could even be called the Cyrus Accords. And multiple Bible experts agree U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran have had end times prophetic significance. What is that prophetic significance? Well, if we do the article up further, you're going to see come out. You're going to see Ezekiel recorded under divine revelation that in the latter years, a coalition of nations will descend upon Israel to try to wipe it out. So prophecy teachers are looking at Ezekiel and saying, this could be Magog, this could be that thing that Magog, this could be this thing where Ezekiel talks about it in, chapter 37 and 38 about these nations, and 39, a coalition, even names who the nations are, coming together to destroy Israel. But there's one verse they just discovered with Trump's neutralizing of Iran. Israel's taking out Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas on their border, the Houthis in Yemen. Suddenly, there's a shift happening, and here's what they're saying. There's a verse, and the verse is, after many days in the latter years, you will come into the land that is brought back from the sword. This is Ezekiel 38, verse 8. Prophesies Israel coming back into the land in 1948 from all the nations, and they're coming in, and it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely. And then, while they're dwelling safely, now look at this over here in verse 11. I'm reading something to you from Ezekiel, a prophet who was in the Babylonian exile in the period of Nebuchadnezzar, in the period of Daniel in the Old Testament, before Cyrus the Great rose up and liberated the Jews out of Babylon and sent them back to go rebuild their temple in 500 BC. Thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. The Lord is saying what's going into the mind of these rulers that are going to go to war with Israel. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. And I'm going to go and take a spoil, take a prey. I'm going to turn my hand upon their desolate places. And then the prophet says, who are the nations that are going to do this? Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish with all the young lions thereof shall say unto you at that time, art thou come to take a spoil? So my people Israel shall dwell in my land. And what you realize is the prophet is saying that Israel, at the time when nations rise up to go against it, to destroy it, they will be dwelling at peace. And now the prophets are saying, the prophetic people are saying, Trump is fulfilling the verse that says that Israel will have an extended period of time to dwell at peace. We may have bought a couple of years here of peace in the Middle East. I want you to see something. But the prophecy doesn't stop there. It goes in to describe the nations that are going to come interrupt that peace. And it says, let me give it to you. Back here in chapter 38, I will turn you back and put hooks into your jaws, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Carl, if you could look at chapter 38, verse 3. I'm trying to figure out who is the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. You could even use Grok on X. He does fast answers. I just want to know, what are the nations that correspond to Meshech? Because here's the fun part of Bible study. You get to read Persia and Ethiopia and Libya with them. How about that? How about the Bible even names countries that still exist today? Who's going to go against Israel? Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. Where's my pen? Where's Persia? Persia's modern-day Iran. Where's Ethiopia? I know it's here. Well, here's Ethiopia right there.
Kush.
Persia, modern-day Iran. Ethiopia.
And/or Sudan is Kush.
Turkey. Where does it say?
Turkey or Armenia or Turkey or Eastern
Turkey
Europe
or Armenia?
Are Togarmah, and Gomer. And then also Turkey or parts of modern Russia are Meshech and Tubal.
And part of the Sudan. One could almost see that Egypt seems to be caught right in the middle of it. Coming down from the north over here and coming in from there. So Israel, let me give you a little different color here, just so you can see the pattern. Israel itself is going to be attacked from all directions. They're going to come in. And the nations are identified. And they're identified as Persia, Ethiopia, Libya. And then Carl says Meshech and Tubal would be parts of Turkey,
or
that area.
Russia.
But notice that Sheba and Dedan, verse 13, and the merchants of Tarshish, the young lions, shall say, what are you doing? Now, interestingly enough, Japheth is the descendant of Tarshish and the young lions, Sheba and Dedan. So Sheba and Dedan refers to Saudi Arabia and Jordan. So what you see here is an interesting thing. Saudi Arabia is apparently not participating in the invasion of Israel, the takeover of Israel. It's kind of a curious distinction right there if we're reading that correctly. So you see that, and Tarshish, which would be parts of the EU and the USA. And so you've got the end-time nations there in the ships of Tarshish that are saying, they're doing business, what are you doing? But boom, this attack is going to happen. And what I'm trying to tell you is the fascinating thing about Bible prophecy is that the Bible says at that time, God will rise up and judge these nations. And I know some of you are saying, but Lance, what about Rosh? And Rosh is referred to as one of these spirits that, one of these words that's used. And Rosh, and because it's referred to as directly north of Israel, this would be Russia. So Russia, Iran, Turkey actually are going to be nations aligned against Israel in this battle that's described in 3 chapters. But it doesn't happen until Israel dwells safely, peacefully, prosperously. And what the Bible teachers are saying is that this confederation is coming at the end of a 5 to 10 year cycle of peace initiated by the United States in the Middle East. So what you've got is a reworking of the prophetic blueprint based on the fact that Bible experts agree that what has happened now with Iran has reset their expectation to believe that the period of peace emphasized in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 11, has started now. And for a period of time, maybe 5 to 10 years, you might have a period of unusual opportunity for the United States to bring the gospel into other nations. If we can keep from self-destructing economically, we have a window of time to bring peace and to see the gospel go forth to the nations before the door shuts. Well, that's Bible prophecy in the news. We'll see you again on our next episode.
Clean, safe water. It's the foundation of a healthy home, but hidden contaminants could be putting your family at risk. That's why there's Sentry H2O, the smarter way to protect what matters most. It filters out what doesn't belong and restores what your body needs. Pure, mineral-rich water that tastes as fresh as it is clean. Because your family deserves more than just clean. They deserve water that supports their health. Go to lancewallnau.com/water and use code LANCE to save 10% on your water wellness system. That's lancewallnau.com/water, code LANCE.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.